Welcome to the NACA American Dream Program. Each week, we'll talk about how NACA is revolutionizing mortgage lending with the best mortgage in America. It's no down payment, no closing cost or fees, no PMI, no consideration of your credit score. And guess what? It's at a below market fixed rate. NACA's just relentless. This is the NACA way.
Hey, welcome back for another NACA's American Dream program where we are talking to you about what's going on with NACA and how to maneuver and answer questions about many of the things that you want to know that may have gone unanswered. Backed by popular demand for a third time, people, we have Tammy Johnson here from the Hand Department, Director of the Hand, who's going to enlighten us with more questions. And it's because you have so many questions about the Hand Department and there's so many moving parts. She's here to continue to unpack those questions. But before we bring her on, Anjanette, what's going on? How was your weekend? What is it like over there? What's going on?
Hey, Damian and Tammy Johnson. Hey, Nacolodians out there in Nacaland.
I like that.
What, Nacolodians in Nacaland?
Yeah, I like that.
Too. I got that from my son because he's a Nickelodeon kid. So I always say Nacolodian. So hello, Nacolodians in Nacaland. This is the NACA American Dream program where it is a beautiful day to be out there getting your new home with a 2.125 interest rate on a 30-year fix and a 1.5 on 15 years. That is the way you go and claim your generational wealth, ladies and gentlemen. That is how you go and manifest what is rightfully yours, and that is your home ownership. So it's a beautiful day to be out there looking for a property, Damian. And last week we had Rob Torres on who talked about the marketing, the conditions in the market and things like that, and how to look for a home and what to look for. But now that we've looked for this home and we think we found the perfect home, we got to have Tammy back on. And Tammy, we want to thank you because Tammy is the national director for the Hand Department. She's going to talk to us about what is Hand, how to, have a nice, smooth process in the Hand Department with your rehab on your home. But on top of that, it is also good because what Tammy does is give us good information, and not just us. There's a lot of members and clientele that's out there looking for homes, and they need to know the do's and don'ts. We've had inspectors on and things like that. And what I like about Hand is one of those things that we don't realize we're going to need it, especially if we're getting an existing home, but how to utilize Hand in the best possible way, how to make Hand work on our behalf, and not the people, but how to make that process really at its best work for us. So Tammy, with that, we want to thank you because there is so many things that you and your team could be doing, and you guys have taken some time out of your busy day to come and talk with us. We appreciate it. Tammy's out in San Antonio where she runs an entire department. So she has all 47 plus offices across the country helping. And plus she has her centralized location in San Antonio. So throw up some hearts because we want to thank Tammy Johnson for coming to us today. Throw the hearts up. You are in the house. Take it away, yes. Tammy.
Thank you, guys. So yes, it's a beautiful day here in San Antonio, Texas. Thank you for inviting me in. Just want to kind of touch on some things that Anjanette said because we want it to be a smooth process, but the reality is when it comes to Hand, you need to get your hands dirty. Once you've found that home, it's actually a little bit more rockier of a process, and we want it to be something that you're engaged in, right? So we want you to roll up your sleeves and get prepared to find out what's going on with the home that you're buying so that you can understand how it's going to impact your affordability. And I think today we're going to talk about, the resources, the tools, right? Inspectors, contractors, things that you want to have ready once you find a house, the people that you rely on and really kind of help you understand what you're buying, because there is, NACA is here to help facilitate an affordable mortgage. But once you buy that home, that's your home for better or for worse. And you need to make sure that this is the right decision. And with the environment that we're in, with limited inventory, there's not a lot of options out there, and people are making decisions to purchase pre-existing properties that may need work. Some of these pre-existing properties have been flipped by investors who put minimal amount of money into the investment of making it look pretty, and then you buy it and it's a lot worse than you anticipated. So I'm looking forward to the questions today. Hope I can answer as many as possible, but thanks for inviting me back.
Wonderful. And we do have them coming in for those of you who are just joining, 833-771-0500. That's 833-771-0500. We are also live on Facebook. To all our Facebook fans out there, thank you for joining. Throw up the hearts for yourself, because you took out the time today to get enlightened and educated. Damien, I'm sorry, I had totally forgot to call out that phone number. So I know you have some questions, and Tammy was here a few months ago, or about a month or so ago. And Damien, remember, we didn't even have enough time. She had so many questions that people wanted to ask about their rehab. Can we just kind of pull back a little bit, Damien, and ask Tammy, what is the hand department's sole purpose? Why were they created? Why are they here?
Right. Go back. Yes.
Thank you.
So HAND stands for the Home and Neighborhood Development Department. Home and Neighborhood Development is a focus, or NACA's mission, on making sure that the property a member buys fits within their affordability. When we started way back when, we didn't have the HAND department, and we were focused on an affordable payment. And then what happened is people were getting into properties within an affordable payment. They were coming back to us with serious hardships because of the condition of the home. So early on, almost within the first couple of years of NACA generating an affordable mortgage product, NACA's powers that be sat down and said, we really need to make sure that our members understand the condition of their home. And plus, we want to revitalize communities. So we want a renovation product. So we sat back down with Bank of America, and we negotiated the rehab escrow option onto our loan. And we wrote underwriting criteria around that basically said, the house, just like you had to qualify for a PITI payment that you can afford, the home needs to qualify within your same affordability. And we're going to create this department, the Home and Neighborhood Development Team, or HAND, and they are going to look at the property condition. So as an inspection will be done, that'll be provided to HAND. They will review it and determine required repairs. Required repairs revolve around code, safety, health, which is structural, roof, major mechanical things that would impact someone financially. I'm down here in South Texas. In the summertime, if my air conditioner goes out and I can't afford to replace it, I'm going to pass on a mortgage payment or two to get that air conditioner working. So we know what conditions members will put themselves in to not make a mortgage payment in order to cure repairs. Not to mention, it's the largest investment you're probably going to make. And it's very important that the foundation, the structure of the home, is solid. It's very important that your roof is good. A lot of people are under the misconception that homeowners insurance is going to take care of you if your roof goes out. Not if it was a pre-existing condition. And if you have a property inspection that shows pre-existing conditions, you have nothing to prove if the insurance company comes back and says, we're not going to cover it, or we're only going to give you $500 depreciation because of pre-existing. That inspection report is your salvation. You want to be able to take it back and say, no, this isn't pre-existing. The roof was in good condition based on my inspection. If you can't say that and you didn't replace the roof, you don't have insurance coverage for pre-existing problems. And so there's a lot of misconceptions out there. HAND is here to help anything related to property condition issues, things that would come off an appraisal, lender required, things that are NACA required. We're going to issue out a NACA repair list, and everything that's required must be addressed in order for this property to be eligible for purchase. We're going to make recommendations. Those are optional. And if you have room in your financing for rehab, you can also add in wish list repairs. And so we have a lot of members that are renovating homes to fit their current household needs. So there's a lot that HAND does, but our main focus is to make sure that the home that somebody is purchasing fits within their affordability. And I'll pull back there and let you ask some more questions.
So you did make one point with the qualifying. And what I've heard is, and I've seen some people request a waiver, but there are qualifications that you have to qualify for that. Could you quantify or say what are the qualifications to get a waiver and how much, and if there's a certain amount of monies and involved in that?
The one thing NACA will not let you do is waive away your affordability. So it has to be affordable. So when we list your required repairs on a NACA repair list from the inspection review, from your inspector that inspected the home, we're going to give an estimated cost to those repairs. In most cases, we have a pretty good idea of how much it's going to take to cure. Sometimes we may need additional evaluations to know the real full cost. Once we know the real full cost, if you can show me that you have the assets to take care of these things on your own after closing, you may be eligible for a waiver. What does that mean, assets? It's a surplus. So when you close, you have minimum required funds that you have to have in order to close. Your prepaid taxes, your prepaid insurance, you have some side money for your inspections, some evaluations, and you have reserves. Reserves are 1, 2, 3 or more mortgage payments based on the type of property that you're buying and your payment shock. Payment shock is the difference between what you pay in rent now and your future mortgage payment. So if you pay $1,000 in rent and your new mortgage payment is $2,500, you have a payment shock of $1,500. So you have to show a consistent savings of $1,500 a month plus your rent to be able to afford that. $1,500 is a lot of money. So you're probably going to need 2 to 3 months mortgage payments based on that payment shock amount. So that's your reserves. So NACA's hand department will look at your minimum required funds and your reserves, and then we'll look at your current assets. Anything after the deduction of your minimum required funds and your assets is what we consider surplus. And then we back out your reserves because you needed to have 2 or 3 mortgage payments. If a multifamily could be as much as 6 months. What is left over after those reserves is how much money you theoretically have to take care of these repairs. If that amount of money doesn't fit within the required repair amount, you're not eligible for a waiver. You cannot afford these repairs on your own because that money that you have was supposed to be for mortgage payments 2, 3, 4 months. So those are that's the criteria for a waiver. A waiver has to make sense. And I cannot waive lender required repairs. And those would be repairs that would show up on an appraisal. Based on the value, if this isn't repaired, the home is not worth this amount, right? So subject to repairs have to be addressed as lender required. We cannot waive those. Those can be negotiated by the seller, added into a rehab escrow. Those would be your only 2 options, or the loan would not be approved. So that's how we look at affordability. If you have the assets to take care of them on your own, we're not here to tie you into a rehab escrow. That's something you can do after you close, but you cannot buy a home that needs repairs that you can't afford to take care of on your own. That's a sign of not just lack of affordability. It's possibly a sign that you're not ready to be a homeowner if you're not looking at the true investment of buying a home, because this house is going to be a long-term investment, more so than a child. At least when they're 18 to 21, they go away. This house keeps on loving you with all of its repair needs for as long as you live in it.
I want you to understand that there's a difference between understand and having understanding. Okay, I want to say that again. There's a difference between to understand and having understanding, because they're not the same thing. So what I want to help us be able to understand how to do is, how do we have understanding if we don't understand? Because oftentimes you interact with people, I don't understand. I don't understand why they think that way. I don't understand why you responded that way. I don't understand why you acting that way. And part of the issue is we're trying to understand something when maybe, just maybe, playing angel's advocate, maybe we should be focusing on having understanding versus trying to understand.
You budget, you pay bills, Yet somehow, women like you, like me,
are 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to save ourselves by setting a goal to save 2% more of our income for our retirement.
Why 2?
1% honors you.
And 1% honors all womankind.
So come on, learn more about the 2% challenge at WeSaySaveIt.org.
Let me tell you the topic for real. It's my vision board isn't working. How many of you all can identify with that already? My vision board isn't working. How do you accomplish the goals that you set before you?
This is my big one. I set myself up for success in all of these things. So it may be researching and gathering information. It may be like, if I'm trying to be healthy, I'm going to have a plan to go to the farmer's market on the weekends. If I say I'm not going to date no more not good people, then I'm going to make those phone calls. I'm saving them in the phone as do not answer. Like, I set myself up to be successful.
I know a lot of people have been trying to figure out what is that waiver process and how does it work. And it makes sense. It has to be in your affordability. So everybody, if you're paying attention to that, make sure you understand and you're talking to your mortgage counselor, you're talking to your hearing representative to make sure that that is within your affordability to get that done. Because if you can't afford it, and this should be really done on the front end during your due diligence period, not after, later once you're trying to figure things out. Go ahead and get those inspections done, and even your contractors to come out and give you those quotes and bids, doing your due diligence so you can have time enough to get out of it if it doesn't work within your affordability.
So Tammy, I have a question with this in mind, and you just answered one of the questions from the last show from a caller that had this question. But the thing about it is, what happens with the counselor? Will the counselor talk to the member about this, or is this a conversation that takes place solely between the contractor, the hand representative, and the member?
That's a very good question. And Damian, I think you touched on that a little bit. It's a partnership amongst us all, right? So ultimately, the member needs to make sure that they understand what they're buying. When you got qualified for a PITI mortgage payment, PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, right?
Right.
So whatever that magic number was, that has to be inclusive of the purchase price and repairs if you're going to do a rehab escrow. So when you are making an offer, your real estate agent, your first partner, is going to be talking to you about what this house should appraise for, right? Based on the comps in the property is as is condition, this is what you should offer. Now, I know with this market, a lot of people are offering more than what a house is valued at. If you don't have the principal to cover that amount, you're not going to be able to buy that home here, because NACA doesn't support people buying homes that are not worth what they're valued, right? We order an initial appraisal. It's called an as-is appraisal. That has to at least appraise for its as-is condition. Now, if you know that there's renovations that need to take place, and most members know this, and most real estate agents that work with them know this before they even get a property inspection, you should have a rough estimate of what it's going to cost to cure these things. If you don't, that's okay within a couple of $1,000s, but you should have a pretty good idea of what it's going to cost. So when you go onto the NACA website and you use the NACA mortgage calculator, there's a box in there for repairs. So if your PITI payment is $1,000, right? And you're buying a home, let's just say taxes, insurance, $100,000 home equivalent to $1,000 payment. So if you make an offer for $100,000, how much room did you leave yourself for repairs? $0. So you don't need the NACA mortgage counselor to do that. You don't need hand to do that. You need to understand, based on my purchase price, how much room am I leaving myself? If you use the NACA the NACA mortgage calculator, that is where you can tool in the taxes, the insurance, and the repairs to understand how much room you have. If you can't leave yourself room for repairs and all you can afford is $1,000, that house is unaffordable. Walk away from it. Even if it's the only house out there, There'll be another house. Just be patient. That's how it works. Once you get an offer, you're going to go through the credit access process with your mortgage counselor. You need to let your counselor know, I'm going to have to do the rehab because the seller's not doing any repairs, or I don't want to negotiate for the seller to do repairs. I want to take care of those repairs. I want to hire those people after I own the home. I don't want to trust that the seller's going to use legitimate licensed people to do the work that needs to be done, right? That's your option. You can negotiate for the seller to do it, but if you know you want to be the person that hires and manages that work and you want to do wish list repairs or whatever, that's the time. Credit access is where you're talking to your counselor and saying, how much room do I have? Based on my required repairs, now that I've got my repair list, I have X amount of dollars and I want to add another figure in for wish list repair. So I need about $60,000 for rehab. How does that line up with my purchase price? Now the counselor can talk to them about, well, you don't have room, but if you buy down your interest rate, that might give you the room. Or maybe if you go back and negotiate for the seller to reduce the sales price to this amount, now that you got your NACA repair list, that brings you to the room. So these conversations are happening at certain times when they need to happen. By the time you get to hand, you need to know how much money you have for rehab. Hand will do a quick assessment. We're going to base it on your PITI and your purchase price, and that is what you are. That's the max you're locked into. If you don't have any room, hand would decline the property at that time if there's no other option, so you can get your earnest money back. You don't want to be in contract for an extended period of time and then lose a refund of your earnest money. So as soon as you get to hand, we know based on the data in the system what your limit is, and if it's not matching up, we're going to go ahead and issue a property decline so you can get out there, get your earnest money back, and get back into the shopping of the home that makes sense for you. That's a lot of information.
Wow.
That's the best I can.
Wow.
So that also begs to make sure you guys, everybody out there, NACA land, Facebook land, all of this, that you really need to take the 2 webinars that Tammy and the hand department offers so you can get a better understanding. So that what you're not able to grasp or don't have time right now, make sure you sign up for those webinars that are on Tuesdays and Wednesdays of every week. I don't know what the schedule is going to be for this week because
Tuesday
of holidays.
is the property qualification.
Okay.
And Wednesday is the rehab escrow. If you're going to add a rehab escrow to your loan, that is a mandatory webinar for you because you need to understand your role and responsibility to a rehab escrow after the loan closes. And we go into that in more depth on that second Wednesday webinar.
And
Awesome.
Tammy, how does a member have to be in that process to join the webinar and get the information? And if not, is it on the website? Can they access it?
The webinars are available to anyone. They are on the website under live webinars, property qualification on Tuesday, rehab escrow on Wednesday. I recommend if you just started the process and you're going through the counseling, attend the webinar just so that you can get an understanding, especially when you're working on your budget. You know, your budget isn't just about getting the minimum required funds. It's understanding, how am I going to afford this house? I don't have a landlord to call anymore. This is all on me. And NACA does not offer post-close repair assistance. And I want to stress that. Once you close, you are the homeowner. You can come back to NACA. We can give you advice, but there's no finance options after closing. The loan is it. The mortgage loan is the entity that we provide. It's an affordable one. But once you close, if something happens, you got to have the surplus and assets to take care of that. And your budget counseling, it's a huge piece of learning what you need to set aside every month to take care of and maintain a home.
And you just answered the questions. And the questions are rolling, Damian. They're coming in now, throwing up the hearts for Doris, Max, and Erica is back. Tammy,
welcome back.
Yes. Hey, Erica. Erica's back. Tammy, Max is asking a question, and I think you just answered it. But Max, if she didn't answer the question, just go ahead on and hit us back at 833-771-0500. His question was, so what if my roof needs repairs in 5 years or so? Can I come back to the hand process to get help? And you just answered it. You got one shot.
You got one shot. I cannot go back and get you money after closing. Outside of that, you would be looking at a refinance option. Why would you want to refinance out of the America's Best Mortgage Program? That's not good. You would just have to save for it. Generally with roof repairs, we need to get a roof cert. And if that roof isn't good for at least the next 5 to 7 years, we're going to ask that you replace it for that reason, because 5 years comes up on you real quick, and chances are you didn't save $9,000 to $10,000 on a roof, and the roof costs right now are skyrocketing. What used to cost now $9,000 is around $12,000 now or more. It's insane.
The biggest advantage that you should really look at as NACA members, NACA homeowners, is the money that you just saved from paying rent to now being a homeowner. You should not quit your savings pattern. It should not go out the window because you're a homeowner now. So things are gonna come up that you weren't expecting. The home inspection, all of that does not tell you everything that's going to happen to the home. Things happen unexpectedly that you weren't prepared for. So continue to save. Do not stop saving because you don't have to. Continue to save so you're ready for those rainy days.
Excellent advice, Damian. And Tammy and I had talked about this a while back, and Sarah Bell is actually saying the same thing. She's saying, you know, even if you purchase a new home, projects never end. They never stop. So it's like you think you finished something and here it is, something else comes up, seasons change.
And I want to point out,
yeah,
absolutely. I want to point out, I think this is where American home buyers get it wrong. You've got this house that you're buying and you're going to have it for the next 15 to 30 years. On average, most people will own their home around 15 years or so. You have time to do improvements. Take care of the repairs first. Take care of the real repairs first. Yeah. If you want to put in flooring, if you want to paint or wallpaper or do new lighting, look for the Home Depot sales and the Lowe's sales and the suppliers out there that are going to train you for free. You can take a class to put in flooring. I think a lot of members want to do the HGTV house right off the bat. Yeah. The reality is there's no, been doing this a long time and hand rehab is in my blood, but there's no more joy than the joy of you doing the work yourself. If you can put some costs aside over time, you get your tax returns, pocket that. I want to go ahead and put some wood flooring down. I'm going to go take a Home Depot class. You don't need to finance these things. What I really want you to focus on is the real issues, the code, the safety, the health, the things that are going to get worse if not addressed. And it costs more the longer you wait. The things that are improvement related, take your time. You've got time. You don't need to run out and buy furniture for a house. You don't need to run it, live in it, understand your home. Your home has a vibe. How do you want it to feel? How you want it to look? You're not going to know that within the first 6-7 months of living in that home. It takes about a good year. I know a lot of people that bought a house and they're like, oh, this is way more house than I needed. I wish I really been focused. Slow down. You don't need the biggest, the baddest, the best. You need the most affordable, and you need something that's not going to cost you so that you can have a lifestyle on top of just a mortgage payment. So Damian, $300 minimum savings a month is the rule. Save that as a surplus. Anything that comes up, you're covered. And I think you'll be much happier because you'll be able to do other things other than just make a mortgage payment and work to make that mortgage payment.
I would also add, do not sleep on the fact of of having a home warranty, because that should be almost included with your PITI home warranty, because it can cover the HVAC, it can cover the appliances, it can cover the air condition. I had to use them to replace my refrigerator. I got a brand new refrigerator, and my hot water tank burst, and they covered that. Now I did have to pay some additional funds, but I didn't have to pay for the complete entirety of it. So please add that to your budget and use it.
Home warranty is very important. And we have you, Doris. I hear you calling. Doris is asking, how extensive are the repairs that NACA members are allowed to do? And that is such a good question, Doris. Throwing up some hearts for Doris. Thank you for that question.
Well,
thank you.
We go all the way down to the studs. We do gut rehabs. We don't do new construction. You can't do a new construction build through hand. But we've gone down to the studs and rebuilt homes back, especially the older homes. There's a lot of old housing stock. I've said this on the previous shows. This is the best time in real estate to sell a house with the worst problems for a seller. I want you to hear that. This is a seller's market. I can sell anything right now, regardless of its condition. So be aware and beware. Beware of what you're buying. But we have members that are going in, getting inspections, and we need new foundation, new flooring, new structural framing, roof. So we do everything. What we don't do is probably the better question. We don't do pools. We don't do luxury. We're not going to support inflating a mortgage payment that doesn't support the household size. So if you're buying a home and you're a household of 5, 2 parents, 3 kids, and you buy a home and you want to make that household the size for 10, your household doesn't support that. So we're not going to allow a renovation for extra rooms and bathrooms you don't need. So those are things that you can do on your own outside of the loan over time. It has to support the current household size, and no luxury items. Like I said, no pools, no big barbecue pits, landscaping, things like that. Those are the things that you don't want to finance in a 30-year mortgage.
Yep. Well, you just
make sure you're up. Make sure you're upfront with your mortgage counselor and seeing how many people are in your household, because I've seen where you're telling them it's just 2, but in actuality, you got grandkids, adult kids still living. And now when we go out trying to search for a home, you're looking for one that's trying to support 8, when you only told a mortgage counselor is you and your wife. That's not, and then it's not affordable.
Yeah.
And that could also be misconstrued as fraud. So you need to really be honest.
Say that one more time. Say it again, Tammy. Say that word again.
Say it for the people in the back.
Fraud, if you come back later and say, no, it's this and not that.
Right.
What we tell our NACA members is, tell us everything so that we know how best to help you. If you hold something back and we find out later, it's construed as fraud and it could get you removed from the program. And we don't want that to happen to anyone. So be absolutely honest, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help you with what you have. Withholding information doesn't look good on your part, and we wouldn't want that to impact your ability to use the program.
This is such an awesome program that you don't need to get kicked out of it. Just be upfront and honest. And the mortgage counselor and your real estate agents and the hand department, we're going to try to help see you through, but we can't help what we don't know and that you didn't disclose to us.
That's right.
Right. And I wish the member would call in that was here a few weeks ago on one of our previous shows, because you're talking about getting the right home and getting the right fit. And I always equate it to the functionality of the home. And people will look at a family size. I'm a family size of 2, and I get extra space. And they say, why do you need all that space? Because I think about the functionality of the home. Because there's most times where I had a grandmother at one point living with me. So what I looked for was a house with wide hallways and not a whole lot of carpet, because if they're on a walker and things like that, that walker has to roll easily on a flat floor. So wood floors and slate and all this stuff was important to me at that time. The wide hallways was important to me at that time. And so when we think about that, think about the functionality of the home. Another question, Tammy, is what is the benefit of purchasing a home that requires renovations rather than just getting a brand new house outright?
That's personal preference, right? So sold real estate for years, and I was anti-new construction because I come from a construction background, right? And I knew, and I worked predominantly with low-income households. I knew you were going to get more bang for your buck with the pre-existing property than you are going to get with new construction. New construction is like buying a car. You're going to pay more off the lot than you are if you buy a used car. And you're not going to be able to get what you bought that car for right away. You're going to have to live in that house for a considerable period of time. So it comes down to preference. Like I would never buy a new construction home, but here I am building a home right now, right? But unlike Anjanette, I want something very small. So all of this comes down to preference. Make sure you're looking at your basic needs. What do I need for my household size, right? Yes, some people might need a little extra space for office. A lot of people are working remote now. Some people, maybe you have an only child, you're not having more children, but you want a place for other kids to come and play. I just had a member tell me that the other day. She wanted to kind of create like a big playroom. That makes sense for me, right? And she had young children. So there's these things that you need to sit down, and your realtor should be a good resource. What is the most important things that you need, and go from the top to the bottom. List number one, most top priority. You may have to scratch some things out. In the reality, based on inventory, you're not going to get everything you want, but you may find the ones at the top that are the most important to you are available only in new construction. Whereas pre-existing, you may have to build them in. So going back to your answer, you know, is it better to get new construction or pre-existing? I think it just depends on the person, but I'm here to tell you, if you have no patience, right? If you don't like people in your house, because contractors, they're going to be in your house, they're going to be up in your stuff. If you are a little apprehensive about working with a contractor, you know, and this is something that you've got to manage on your own, we don't manage this for you. This might not be the right step. I just talked to a member out of a rehab escrow today, because every single thing that we were guiding her through, she's like, well, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, I don't think a rehab is right for you. You don't want people in your house. You want them to be here at a specific time. No contractor is going to work with you on that. Contractors are very busy right now, and they get to dictate who they work with, right? They want to work with people who are going to be patient, who are going to listen and communicate back and forth. If I'm having a problem communicating with you, a contractor is going to have a problem communicating with you. Maybe you should lean towards construction. So I think it comes down to preference and just really patience. If you're not a patient person and you're going to fly after the handle a lot, I'm that kind of person, and I'm married to my contractor, and I feel so sorry for him right now. But, you know, you just got to be ready for this, because it's on you. And once you close, you signed on the dotted line, you were doing all of these things, and you got to adhere to it. If not, the lender's going to foreclose on you, because there's a default action to a rehab. So really, what makes sense for you? Maybe you need to move right away and live in that house. If you got to do a renovation that you can't live in, renovation's not the right thing for you. Go towards new.
How has the pandemic been a blessing to your ministry?
It's been a blessing. And I know that my humor has helped with just keeping me not focusing so much on that part and falling into the fearful side of what I'm finna do. And even the Bible says, be anxious for nothing. Like, we're not supposed to, all these things that we sing about, we're supposed to put them into practice. If you trusted in God, you're supposed to demonstrate and display that. You don't supposed to be like, fill all my braids out. Like, that's not the will of the Lord. So, and then it's not cute after the stressing and all that died down. I just got patches of whatever. Right. That's not the Lord's will. Nobody want to see that virtually.
Yeah, that's funny to me.
In the society that we were brought up in, it's very hard on little black boys. You have to navigate feelings and emotions so the world don't get you.
Sometimes when I cry, I won't know how I'm feeling or why I'm crying.
I just grew up never feeling like it was okay to cry.
Yeah.
And so he really forced me to have to reconnect with the kid that didn't get to cry.
That's beautiful.
We don't cry, we gon' take our piece of the
One thing that we talked about last week is about the disparity between African Americans when it comes to diseases such as Alzheimer's and dementia.
There's over 70 types of dementias that's out there, and Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia. And so you can have problems with your memory, so memory loss. You can have problems with language. So there's something called expressive aphasia, where you can't get out the right words. You're calling the microwave, the remote control. You have problem-solving issues and other thinking abilities. That is what sums up and falls under dementia.
Also, you would want to consider that a new construction might be pushing the limit to your affordability. However, you're now not needing to really think about including rehab because there's no rehab. You're getting a new home. So that's the other thing that you have to think about, getting us a lower price home, but you're able to now include in the repairs. But if you get a newer home, you're pushing or at the edge of the limit, but you don't have to include repairs. So that's also the difference that you want to consider. And also with new construction, you're pretty much still putting in offers and bids and having to go up higher, just like you do on a regular retail. You're not the only one bidding for that lot anymore. It used to be you put a bid in and now that's it. But now you're competing with other people. It may be 6 other people placing a bid on that same lot.
With more money.
and one more thing to consider that really American buyers didn't have to think about before. They're telling you this house is going to be built within 120 days. Those days are getting pushed back.
Yeah.
So it could take you a year. I have a member right now, a year and a half.
Yeah.
A year and a half, because the vendors, the contractors that build these homes, we lost a lot of good contractors to COVID.
Yeah.
We lost contractors to retirement because of COVID. People are changing in and out of the industry, and you just don't have the skilled trade there, which I pray with the new infrastructure bill, we're going to be seeing a lot more people come back into this trade and really focused on doing a good job. But people who build new construction homes, you don't know these trades and you don't know how long they've been doing it. So there's a lot of dynamics that are changing within the industry, and you got to be prepared for that. And just because they said the house is going to be ready in 121 days doesn't mean it's going to be, and it's taking longer. Getting the materials to the job site, we see it all over the news. There's a lot of things going on. Even if you do a rehab, you may not be able to get that renovation right away. It may take you a while to find a contractor, and then once you find him, you're going to have to get in line because he's got that many projects stacked behind him or her. So there's a lot going on. Make sure this is something you want to do.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you remember the young lady that was here last week on the show. It was a year before she got in. And a lot of times with those contracts, there are a lot of contingencies because the contracts are written by the builder. So they take out a lot there's no due diligence period. There's no walking away just because you want. So your earnest money a lot of times is in jeopardy. So think about that, that long time frame, and a lot of contingencies are removed when they write those contracts, because they're writing them based on them and their benefit. It ain't for your benefit as a member.
Absolutely.
That's
a lot
right.
of practices in new construction right now, I would say.
Yep. And we got to be alert on everything because the market and the climate has truly changed. Marilyn is saying, what if you need your home to facilitate your home-based business, which is a daycare?
Okay. So what we do is residential construction. We don't do any commercial construction. Mm-hmm. There are some areas where we can work around. If you can show that is your current employment, right? You can definitely, we're not going to incorporate financing for commercial purposes, but if you need a big room, a big open room, there's things that we could potentially do. NACA's approved property types is also one of the approved property types is a mixed use property. Mm-hmm. So you could find a commercial residential property. It has to be at least 50% residential. The thing is that we don't offer construction funds for the commercial side of it, but you can sometimes work with the seller to do that prior to close. So if someone is selling a mixed use property and you negotiate for them to do improvements to the commercial side as part of the transaction, you can still do residential upgrades as part of a rehab escrow. But there's ways on those types of properties, I'm usually involved directly, kind of guiding them on what we can and cannot do, but we don't offer commercial funding for improvements. So just be aware of that.
Well, let me play devil's advocate to Marilyn's question. She sounds like, and Marilyn, I'm speaking for you. So if you're out there in Facebook land, correct me if I'm wrong. She's actually asking about a home-based business that happens to be a daycare. So what if I wanted to just get a house? I may be a family of 3 and I only need really 3 bedrooms, but what if I find a house and it's 5 or 6 rooms, extra rooms? Can I use those rooms for my daycare business? How would you?
No, that would be something that would be supported. Like I said, there's wiggle room. So if you're doing a big open room daycare area and it's like a family room and I can see you have a daycare. The main thing we want to focus on is we've got people that are coming in and trying to use NACA for investment purposes and flipping the property. Right. So we have a no tolerance policy for anything outside of the household. If you have a daycare and you're trying to do something that is like a big open room for a daycare, I can sort of bend the rules on that, but individual rooms setting up for commercial purposes, that would probably not be something that would be.
Very good answer. Yeah. I believe it or not, which is really weird, that has never happened. Why am I getting questions? Why am I getting questions? They're supposed to be going to the number, but I have a vendor question that someone texted me and said, what is the detailed process for vendors to get paid specifically?
Oh, it's pretty simple. You approve them to get paid. They work for you. They don't work for us. For a little bit more in-depth response to that is the contractor has to be licensed, insured, have a valid tax identification, and a bank account tied to their business, because all payments are made directly to the contractor via wire. Once the contractor is approved and their bid is approved, you want to hire somebody, you're going to submit, you're going to have the contractor register if they're not already registered. Registration is license, insurance, tax ID. They don't work for us. They're independent contractors. They work for you. So you have to do your due diligence in making sure you know who you're hiring. If they don't do the work right, if they do damage, that's between you and them. And there's contract language in there that helps you if there is a claim or any type of recourse for any inappropriate anything that happens on a job. But outside of that, NACA has to make sure they're licensed, insured, tax ID, bank account. We set them up with the vendor. They submit a bid. It matches your scope of work, which is the underwriting guidelines per the terms of your loan. And then we approve your project to start. There's a little bit more in depth, and you can go to the Rehab Escrow webinar for that. Once they start, they're working for you. We'll have a draw inspection on everything that they get paid, right? So if they get started and then within hopefully 30 days, we see an inspection. We have to have an inspection within 30 days of the project starting and every 30 days thereafter. We look at the percentage of work completed. Based on the percentage of work completed, as long as it's 50% or more, we can pay them. Some line items require 100%. We're not going to pay on a half completed roof, right? That needs to be 100% completed. Maybe it's a kitchen renovation and there's stages of it. Maybe we'll allow less than 50%. So it just depends. It has to be a percentage complete. We'll pay on. Then we issue out that draw inspection that came to us from the independent inspector that we selected. They work for the lender to visually verify the work. They're not guaranteeing the contractor's work or warranting the contractor's work. That's between you and the contractor. That's why you have to do your due diligence. We send over that draw inspection and say, based on this inspection, the contractor can be paid X amount of dollars minus a holdback on every payment. We do a 10% holdback minus materials, so that there's a little bit of extra money there for the final. We don't want a contractor taking off on you because they got paid their profit in the first half of the job and there's no money in it and they leave you holding the bag. So that's what a 10% holdback is. So we send that draw inspection over and we say, you can pay up to this amount. You can't pay over, but if you don't want to pay this amount and you want to adjust it down, you got to explain to us. Why don't you want to pay them the approved amount? Well, they were supposed to do this and that's not done, or I'm not happy with the workmanship, so I'm going to reduce it. So there's an adjustment process that you could do. You are the signer of the check that we release. I can, and it's a wire, but I can pay them up to the amount I showed you in the draw inspection. You can adjust down based on, you got to give me reasonable explanation. It's got to make sense. And then you authorize me to release that payment and I release it. So I don't pay the contractor, you do. I pay him based on the underwriting guidelines. So when you hear a contractor say, I don't want to work for NACA because they don't pay us, that's a flag. Somebody didn't pay that contractor because they weren't happy with their work. That's a red flag. Do you understand?
So it's not NACA, it's the member.
It's the member.
I don't. Okay, see, didn't know that. Now, I also have a part B to this question. Can material draws be provided prior to the work beginning?
Yeah, we don't do upfront deposits except on major projects, and that contractor has to be eligible. We just started an advance option, but it has to be a contractor that's done projects with us. They've got to have a reputation and be recommended by members, and that's for major renovations. On smaller projects, they can do, because we don't do upfront deposits, they can do a material request, and the material request is something that happens after the project is approved to start. You can submit a material draw, purchase orders from where those materials are being purchased, and then we will have a check cut to that supplier sent to the member who will work with the contractor to get those materials. That they work that out amongst themselves once the check is delivered. And then we need to receive back for the next draw, because you got to show that you actually bought what you were supposed to buy. We've had, unfortunately, some shenanigans where someone went out and bought a big screen TV instead of a refrigerator, and the project is frozen and the member has to pay that money back, or the contractor, whoever does it. So remember, this is a loan, and there are audits that take place with the lender, and they got to show what that money was spent for. Every dollar has to match up to the approved scope of work. You can't make changes to your project after closing. So the scope of work is what we're legitimately working towards.
That makes sense.
Welcome to my life.
We are learning today, everybody. I mean, y'all
In
put some
class.
hearts up for Tammy Johnson in the hand department, because we are learning today. 833-771-0500. My God. Oh, my
Hand
goodness.
class is in session today. Hand class.
It is. So Tammy, this brings up a good question. So the member controls the funds and the process as it relates to paying the builder or the contractor.
The member doesn't control the funds in that the lender holds the funds, right? The funds are held in a secured rehab escrow. NACA's hand department is the facilitator of the terms of the escrow agreement. The member
work to be done.
Member controls the release of the funds if it's a legitimate control. Now, let's say, and this doesn't happen a lot, thankfully. Let's say Damien is working for you, and you and Damien have a little side deal that you didn't tell us about, and now it's time to pay Damien for the work that we've proven as complete on this draw inspection. But Damien didn't fulfill his side work, and you come back and say, I'm not paying him. And we're saying, well, Angie, why don't you want to pay him? Well, you don't want to tell us you were doing side work because that's against the policy.
Right.
I'm going to pay Damien.
Fraud too, isn't that also fraud?
Yes, I'm going to pay Damien, and then I'm going to close the account. Any money that's left over goes back to principal because some shenanigans were going on. But sometimes maybe it's just, you don't like Damien. Sometimes there was an issue. Damien did his job. There was no complaint about the work. You just don't like that Damien was making the profit that he was making. I can't hold up Damien's payment because I have proof. If you can't give me a legitimate reason, I'm paying Damien and moving this along, right? But it has to be legitimate. And sometimes when we can't determine, then we freeze the account, and you got to go to arbitration per the terms of the contract agreement and work that out amongst yourselves. So you want to be careful to make sure that's why we work very diligently to make sure that the scope of work that is approved is completed per the terms of the loan, and that work is inspected and verified so that everybody is above board and doing what needs to be done. Working with your contractor, you want to make sure you have a good relationship with the contractor. You don't have to know them, but you need to do your due diligence and check them out. You need to make sure that you've checked their credentials using services like Home Advisors or Angie's List, going to Home Depot to the contractor's desk and saying, hey, do you have any contractors that do windows? You know, you want to do your own due diligence and then research and make sure that this person, you're going to get along with them. And if you can't get along with them in the interview process and them coming out, they're not talking to you or not giving you enough information, you might want to find the one that fits you. There's personalities out there for everyone, but remember, it's really hard to find contractors right now. They're very busy, and they do get to call who they work with. And so you want to be respectful. And if you think you're going to mistreat someone and talk down to them just because they're working for you, they don't have to work for you, and they're going to pass. And we have a lot of contractors that say, I don't work with NACA, but what they really are saying to you is, I don't want to work with you. You got to be respectful. You don't want someone coming into your employment and telling you, you know, that you're subservient to them. This is a professional. This is what they do. You know, you want to be respectful. If they're disrespectful, then all bets are off. Walk away from that person. But it's a rough time to find a contractor. You got to make sure you find someone that fits your personality and that you two can have an open dialogue about what is expected and what you want.
So Tammy, with that being said, because you just said there's a short list, what can members and everybody in the NACA and the diaspora do to help get more contracts? Because the list is very short. How can they play a part if they do the work themselves, or how can they help facilitate getting more people on these lists that our members need?
So let's talk about the list real quick, and I'm glad you brought that up. So we have two lists. Let's start with the inspectors list. We have gone through an audit over the last couple of months, and if your license is expired, if your insurance is expired, we have to take you off the list until you can provide us updated documents. Just because you register doesn't mean you're registered forever. License expires, insurance expires. So we sent a lot of information out to the inspectors saying, hey, we need updated docs. Some inspectors responded, some did not. So we can't put anybody on a list if we don't have at least valid license and insurance. And that's what you want from us. This is a courtesy list of inspectors. These inspectors do not work for NACA. I hear a lot of real estate agents and members saying the NACA inspector. NACA doesn't have inspectors. They're independent contractors. They were referred to NACA by members just like you and real estate agents like you, Damien. So all we do is verify license and insurance. It's a member's responsibility to do their own due diligence and checking, you know, references and making sure that they've got somebody that they feel comfortable working with. It's a courtesy list. You don't have to use the inspectors on that list. If you find someone that's not on that list, all you have to do is get them registered. What does registration mean? License, insurance, tax ID. They have to agree to use the home gauge software that's NACA customized. It's free. We provide it to all registered inspectors, and it's state specific. So if in the state of Texas, the Texas Real Estate Commission is the commission that oversees property inspectors. They have a Texas form that all Texas inspectors have to use. Home Gauge has those forms built into that Home Gauge software for that state specific criteria. So we give them the free software, and the reason they have to use this software is, number one, it has requirements outside of the state specific, in addition to the state specific. Number one, the member must be in attendance of a property inspection. If they're not buying this home for themselves, or they're not taking it serious enough, and we're not going to accept the inspection, because that is a mandatory requirement. The inspector takes a picture of the member in front of the house. We know the difference between a member selfie and a picture in front of the house. So we're going to be diligent about that. They have to take photographs of all noted defects, and they have to take photographs of the entire house as a summary. We're trying to get an idea. We can't be out there with you. And if you want us to give you our best advice about what needs to be addressed, we got to have as much photographic evidence of the issues as possible. We want to know that the water and the electricity was turned on. You have to have utilities turned on in order for this property inspection to be eligible for us to accept it. The only exception to that is when there's damages preventing water or electricity or gas being on, and we would see those damages in the property inspection report. So we have certain questions built into the Home Gauge software that it requires the inspector to address them. If they don't, we would reject the inspection report for additional information. So as long as an inspector that you bring to us is willing to register, use the Home Gauge software, we're going to work with them. And if you like them, we'll add them to the list for other members to use, right? That's how we get property inspectors. But you don't have to use someone on that list. You can go out and find your own and get them registered. It takes about 2 weeks to register someone. So if you want to use someone that's not on the list, get them registered before you find a home. That's very important, because that's going to delay your process. That's the inspector's list.
Now, Doris wants to know, where can we find the courtesy list? Where is the courtesy list?
The courtesy list is handed out to you when you get qualified. With your qualification letter, you got a courtesy list. Now, if you don't find a home right away, that list is going to be updated almost on a weekly basis. We take people off, we add people on. So if you have that list in your hands for more than 2 weeks and you go find a home, you need an updated list if you want someone on the list. You can send it to hand@nacca.com. We take inspectors off all the time for complaints and expired documents. If it's easy enough and we can just get updated documents, we'll keep it moving. But if they were removed, and we just removed a handful of inspectors because they were not putting things on the inspection that were supposed to be, and that's fraud. So we fire the inspector, we fire the member from the program, and we keep it moving, and we have to take that inspector off the list.
Wow.
So, and the agents that are involved in it. So you can't, an inspector can't leave something off because you asked them to. They have to disclose everything. And remember, we get a second inspection. It's called an appraisal. So you really can't hide anything. So again, honest is the best policy. But
it's in your best interest. It's in your best interest to disclose all that.
Absolutely. So did that answer your question? I'm sorry, I got sidelined.
Yes, that we did. And you know what? Our production manager, April, just told us that we have a few minutes left and you got like 6 questions coming, but keep going, Tammy.
Contractors. Let's talk about contractors real quick. So contractors have been calling us and asking us to take them off the list so that they can finish their projects. They've got too much business and they're getting too much pressure from our NACA members to go do evaluations. They just don't have, I mean, at some point, it's too much work is going to start causing customer services issues for their clients, our NACA members, and we support taking contractors off. Some contractors are being removed for complaints. Some contractors are removed for litigation reasons. If someone gets into a lawsuit with the contractor, we temporarily remove them until that lawsuit's resolved. And it's not always the contractor's fault. Sometimes it's a member. And this takes me back to do your due diligence. When you find an inspector and a contractor and you bring them to the program and get them registered, I give you volunteer credit for that, number one. So that's how we build our lists up. I'm so glad that we're closing this. I just cannot stress this enough. NACA's role and mission is to provide you an affordable mortgage.
Right.
It's not our job to find you contractors. It's not our job to find you inspectors. It's not our job to find you a home. It's not our job to find you a realtor. These are all your responsibilities. And I think sometimes you, the member, can become a little codependent on NACA because we do so much for you in the counseling process to get you ready for homeownership. But a part of being ready for the part of showing that you're ready to be a homeowner is pulling up those big boy and big girl pants, right? And getting out there and saying, this is my home. I'm going to look for my inspector. I'm going to look for my contractor. The courtesy list is there to help support when you don't know where to look. Where can you look? I love Home Advisor because you can go on and you can put in your details about what you want and it shows you everybody that's available in that area. You don't have to sell a contractor on registering with NACA. We'll do that for you. If you can get me the name and contact number of somebody that you've met with and you like them, don't go into all of the details about NACA. And we know how hard it is to go through the program. So if you're having a hard time getting through the program, you might be a little jaded and that might come across to that contractor. If you're not describing it in the best light, why does that contractor want to register with NACA? So you let me do the selling. I've got a team that's prepared to sell a contractor on how to register because it's so easy and it's free. NACA doesn't make any money for contractors that you're using. We just want to make sure these contractors are legitimate, good service, good product. You're happy with them. So if you bring them to me, I'll give you credit, but you got to understand you are responsible for finding them. And if you want to do a rehab, you got to be prepared for the time that it's going to take to do all of that and go to our webinars. We'll share all the details and what it takes to do that at length.
Love it, love it, love it. And Tammy, last question. I got to tap this for Afika. If I start out saying I want to do a new purchase and there are restrictions and stipulations, can I then switch to a rehab?
On a new construction property?
Right. It sounds like what she's saying is that she started off going in saying, I want new construction. And maybe it wasn't financially feasible for her. So now she's going back saying, I want to do a rehab. Can I do it?
No one at NACA should tell you what you can buy outside of the acceptable property types. So if you want to go from new construction to pre-existing, that's on you, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. What I hope I didn't hear is that you want to do new construction rehab, We don't do rehab escrows for new construction properties.
Mm-mm.
But if you want to jump from new construction to pre-existing, it's what you contract on. And if you're in a new construction contract, and you don't want to buy that home anymore, work with your real estate agent, because you got to understand what you could potentially be losing, such as earnest money and walk away. You don't want to be held to the contract that the builder can come back. And then once you're free of that, look for your pre-existing. If that's the route you want to go for a rehab, go to the rehab webinar and ask as many questions as you want. We hang out there until we answer all the questions. It can sometimes run a lot longer than we want, but we let you just kind of unload on us more so than.
Sound like you stay until the party's over.
Yes, ma'am.
Tammy, want to talk about you and your team. Are you guys hiring in San Antonio?
Always. I'm hiring rehab specialists. I'm hiring escrow coordinators, and we have hand relationship coordinators that handle sort of the processing side. So if you're in San Antonio, Texas, and you're looking for a job and you've got some construction background, come and see me. We are always hiring.
And you can
yes, we stick to San Antonio, not outside of the San Antonio area.
So no work from home, guys. You got to work in San Antonio if you want to work for the hand department. And you can find these jobs at www.naca.com. I cannot believe it. Damien, look at the time.
No,
Man, Tammy.
I still have appraisal questions. And Damien, I still have appraisal questions coming in. First appraisal, second appraisal, disagree with appraisal.
We're gonna have Tammy. Do you mind coming back again? I know we just keep bugging you. You got a lot of stuff to do.
Sucking her dry.
Do you mind coming back again?
You guys need me. I'm here for you. Save appraisal questions for Eric, and maybe we can come in together and work a transaction all the way through front to back, and then that would help.
That's a good idea.
Eric and I work side by side every single day, because mortgage and hand go hand in hand.
Hand in hand. Well, I like what she said at the beginning, guys. She said, you know, if you're going to go through hand, you got to be willing to get your hands dirty. So I love that. Tammy Johnson, National Director of the Hand Department. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Damien, we did it again.
Hey, but guess what? Come back next week. We have a special treat again.
We have the
regionals. The regional managers are coming back. So get your questions ready. Be ready, come on and ask the questions that you want to ask of the regionals. And Tammy, possibly with Eric, because that does make sense.
I love
Maybe
it.
on one of our upcoming shows. So we want you guys to come back. Awesome. Tell them where to love us, like us, internet, and we're out of here.
I love this. That may be our beginning of the year kickoff, Damien. I simply love that. That's juicy. I can't wait. But yes, you can always find us, love us, do whatever you want to do with us on our official social media pages, the official NACA page, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and always reach us and find us. Any updates on www.naca.com. You guys make it a great day.